Where are the kids?
Right now they're at home, and then Mike has a soccer game at 8, so if we don't make it, I have to go. Just to bring them, and then I gotta go.
All right, good?
Yeah.
All right. August 6, 2025, and we'll call to order this Board of Education meeting. Let's see, Mr. Treasurer, call the roll.
Mr.
Please.
Dobbins.
Here.
Mrs. Etter.
Here.
Ms. Prouse.
Here.
Mrs. Decker.
Here. 4 present, 1 absent. Let's see. So on behalf of the board, I would like to welcome all students, staff, parents, and interested community members to tonight's Board of Education meeting. The board values and encourages public comment. Anyone having an interest, I don't think we have anybody tonight, please sign in. A copy of the board agenda is available to review on our school district's website. Please silence your cell phone. And please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Dobbins. I'll second. Any comments on the agenda tonight? Okay. Okay. We'll vote on this then? Roll call. Oh, roll call.
Mr. Dobbins.
Aye.
Mrs. Decker.
Aye.
Mrs. Etter.
Aye.
Ms. Prouse.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 4-0. And comments from the public, we have none tonight, it looks like. And we'll move on to 4A, Treasurer's Business. Mr.
Thank you,
Treasurer?
Mrs. Decker.
Mhm.
I ask for items 4A, 5A through 5C for approval tonight.
Okay, so we'll take a motion for Mr. Treasurer's Business.
So moved.
Okay, Mrs. Kraus?
Second.
Second by Mr. Dobbins.
First one. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to touch base on a few items. So I do want to recap fiscal year 2025, but first let me knock out our new vendors and purchase orders over 5,000. So for our new vendors, we just had 3. Magic School for AI software, 3,500 from our general fund. DRN Enterprises, which is our AeroLift accessibility vendor for the stairlift equipment, $12,000, which we did from previous meeting, and Current Surfaces, painting of the track surface from previous meeting, $7,500 that we have there. And POs over 5,000. We have a few. Our first one is CDWG. That's for administrative and support staff laptops. I believe 10 people, Matt, that we had on there. Yep. About 1,400, 1,500 per. So $16,219 and change from our Permanent Improvement Technology Fund for those. Number 2 is Great Minds. That's for grades 3 and 4 textbooks, elementary school reading. That's $6,706 and change from the general fund. Graphic Source, that's also from the general fund. That's for newsletters for the 2025-26 school year, summer, fall, winter, and spring, for a cost of $14,018 and change. Number 4 is for SERS, the School Employees Retirement System. This is our annual surcharge amount, which they assess to us and they calculate. It's in line with what we pay approximately each year. This is $40,198 and change from our general fund. Number 5 is ComDoc. That's for our copier and printer monthly cost. It's year 3 of a 5-year agreement that we board approved back in 2023 in March. From the general fund, it's $19,500. Number 6 also goes along with that. That's our Xerox Corporation. It's our copier lease, blanket PO for $23,604, also from the general fund. Year 3 of 5-year agreement that we board approved back in 2023. PSI is number 7, that's for school nursing services, blanket PO, year 2 of a 3-year agreement that we board approved this past February in 2025 from the general fund, $119,527 and change. Number 8 is for NeoNet. This is for all of our NeoNet technology services for the year, such as data map, state software, special services software, backup services, our internet service provider. Altogether, it adds up to $89,920 and change from our general fund. Any questions on those? Okay. And let me circle back to 5A. So what we have here is just a recap of our general fund for the year. And we can see that total revenue came in at 19.3 million. Total expenses were 22.4. So we did have a deficit of 3,171,000. Now keep in mind though that we did a transfer from our general fund to the permanent improvement fund. So had we not completed that transfer, we would have had a surplus of approximately 828,000. And all we did was transfer money from the general fund over to the permanent improvement fund. So we didn't lose any money, in essence. So when we take that beginning balance of 17.3 million, where we began the year 7/1/24, factor in that deficit, brings our ending cash balance, 6/30 of 2025 to 14.1 million. And we can look there to what it does. So we had 12 years of surpluses, and we would have had one this year had we not gone along with that, but there was a long story to that, which was HB 96 and the cash carryover and whatnot. We can see that our cash had been in the 90s since 2019 as a percentage of our expenses. And we know that the state looked at that altogether for all school districts, and the House came out with 25%, then to 30%. The Senate came out at 50%. They compromised in conference committee at 40%. They passed that. But Governor DeWine vetoed that, and they overrode certain items, but not the cash cap. So by transferring that 4 million out and having that deficit and bringing our cash from 17 to 14 million, that left us with a 63% cash as a percent of expenses. So you can see how difficult it's going to be for any school, us included, to operate under what the state was envisioning, under 40%. So, Mr. Young, I mean, we've been talking about this too, how tricky it's going to be for any school to operate in that margin. I mean, it's almost,
Yeah. Especially small school districts.
yeah, it's
It's
just.
going to be really challenging for small school districts that have to invest a lot of resources in order to provide competitive programs for kids. Just take the 15% administrative costs and any associated costs. I mean, a small school district has to do the same number of tasks and responsibility as a school district of 100,000 people. And so that's a disproportionate burden on small school districts. But, I think the great thing, to pat Mr. Mucci on the back, he came in the end of fiscal 18, is that right?
Yes.
Towards the end, and you look at what he's been able to do all the way through. He's been able to really put together sound forecasts, collaborate with all the departments within the school to keep our cash balance healthy. And as long as we don't get any type of additional legislative restrictions, we'll continue to work together to try to slow that decrease down as much as possible. So
Yeah, I mean,
it's interesting because if you cut and you shrink how much you spend, your carryover becomes a higher percentage of what you still have. So
Right.
it's just such a nebulous concept to put a cash cap, because to save money means you increase the percentage of your reserves, therefore penalizing yourself. But then it promotes spending more money, which isn't good for your community. So it's something that we'll continue to navigate on a week-by-week basis, if not day-to-day.
Yeah, I mean, we've been, historically strong, financially. for the past number of years. We still are, but we're just trying to, you know, take what the legislature passed and, you know, move ourselves in that direction. And again, we've been pushing back on that ever since that did come out, so,
I almost feel like we should put an asterisk by fiscal year 2025.
yeah.
I said the same thing to him.
You know, it's
Yeah.
like, we remember that this oddity in this chart here was all because of the doings down there in Columbus.
Right.
And if you looked, and you just looked, if you did the comparison of just fiscal year 24 and fiscal year 25, minus the transfer of that $4 million, you had said we'd have a surplus around $875,000, which is almost equal, and it's very close to what fiscal year 2024 surplus was.
Yeah.
So that's an indication to me that if you're in a financial situation that's similar from the year before, then you're doing what you're supposed to do. You know, you're on track. You're not overspending, you're not, you know, you're not doing something odd that would cause the books to falter and look differently.
Right.
And it's a shame, really, because it makes it look like, oh my gosh, $3.1 million in deficit.
Yeah, but definitely that asterisk that, you know, it's like a manufactured deficit. And then just carrying on to, before I go into a couple other reports, you know, down here, I wanted to include some comments made by Howard Fleeter, Dr. Howard Fleeter, when he did a budget review, and I just copy and pasted this from his presentation. I did want to point out, you know, the effects of what that looks like. So, you know, he was just going on to talk about all of the cash balance cap legislation, and, you know, this was a webinar that I was watching, and, you know, he was talking about it, and I'm just nodding the whole time, because everything he was saying I agreed with, and, you know, I remember him saying something like, you know, to him, that was, you know, just like us, one of the most consequential, you know, pieces of legislation that's ever, you know, appeared, and just devastating. So he was of the same mindset. So in green, I have the 30%, and that would have affected, and again, Howard Fleeter was basing this on the fall 2025 cash balance projections. So he was projecting that 478 districts would be above the 30% threshold and would stand to lose 3.7 billion in property tax revenue. You know, at 50%, that would affect 258 districts would be above, and at 40% would be 370 districts being above, and we would be above all of those. So there's about 600 school districts in the state, so at 30%, that's, what, almost 80%, give or, you know, and then 50%, a little less than half, and then 40%, a little more than half. So, I mean, that's affecting a tremendous amount of schools in the state for what that looks like. So, you know, other schools were doing the same thing as us. You know, they were looking at the legislation, pushing back and saying, all right, you know, it's June 30th, and you know, schools were making transfers at that point in time. So, but we all saw it the same way as we went. So looking at a couple of the reports, just wanted to point it out.
Mr. Muccio,
Yes.
before we proceed, I did want to make a comment about this summary of our ending cash balance position for the recent past.
Yep.
It's my understanding that the figures that you've presented here are inclusive of the $230,000 a year annual TPPP phase out, so
Yes.
that these figures would have been slightly higher by that 230,000 amount, and I think roughly speaking, that 230 times 2 is roughly equal to $1 million every other year.
That's
Right?
all included in these.
Okay,
Yep, so these would be ending balances, so that TPP phase-out loss of approximately 213,000 per year is rolled in with these numbers.
okay, thank you.
So, we've been managing, you know, that loss every year and, you know, still being frugal enough to have a surplus in it. So we've been mindful to we know it's there, and, you know, we've been tackling it, you know, different ways throughout the budget to make sure it's not adversely impacting us, so.
Yeah, and I believe something that did go through House Bill 96, you can correct me if I'm wrong. In looking at these numbers, it's important. If a district has a 100% cash carryover balance, they cannot levy new money. They're prohibited from levying new money. So I think that went through. So, I mean, we do have 101 in there.
Yep.
But I think that's a restriction that's been built in to House Bill 96. But they did get rid of the 2/3 board vote to put a levy on, so, yeah, these are good numbers to always reference back to.
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to have schools fit into, you know, back in 2014 and, you know, 13. And at that time, you know, I imagine there were a lot of financial problems here at the school district. So just imagine, you know, that the state wants everybody to be at that, you know, spot with their ending cash balance. Just doesn't make sense. All right, let me go to a couple of reports. So, and these will always be here back for reference. If we look at T2D, which is just our lead sheet that we have here, so we can see our ending numbers, you know, against our kind of projections. So we had our beginning budget, then our November forecast from 24, our May forecast from 25, and then our ending balance here in column P. And then we have our ending numbers here in column N. And we can see that, you know, and this just follows our 5-year forecast as well, general property taxes, we came in at 10.3, and 10.3 was our ending budget. We were only off 6,000, but I'll highlight that one later on. TPP came in at 3.4, 3.4, a little better with unrestricted grants and aid, 866,000 to 850,000. Restricted grants and aid, the estimate was 250,000. We came in more at 261. State share of local property taxes, 1,517,000 was the estimate. We came in at 1,538,000, so higher. And we came in higher for all other operating revenue. 2.4 was the estimate. We came in at 2.7, and we'll look at that one too. Down here is just our advances in that we repaid, 67,000, and all other financing sources, small rebates that we get from Bureau of Workers' Compensation. Estimate was 21,000. We came in at 12,000. For expenditures, personnel services, 10.7 million was the estimate. We came in at 10.3, so under budget. For retirement and insurance, 4.5 was the estimate. We came in under budget at 4.2. Purchase services, yes, the budget was 3.6 million. We came in at 2.9 under budget. Supplies and materials, the budget was 733,000. We came in at 487,000 under budget. Capital outlay, the budget was 150,000. We came in at 39,000 under budget. And other objects, 297,000. We came in under budget at 279,000. Down here for transfers out, we adjusted that because back in the forecast we just had 150,000, and then we adjusted that number after our board meeting on the 30th for that $4 million transfer, and that's the number that we ended up transferring out, full 4.1,100,000. Advances out, the budget was 100,000. We advanced out 30,500 for 3. And all of these figures can be found in all of the other reports that we have. So for tax revenue, you know, we have all the revenue that came in for the different lines, and the 6,000 that we didn't collect here is represented on line 4. So it deals with that vendor owing the district $6,000, which our legal counsel is aware of, and we've been working with them for quite a while to get that, so that's still on my radar. But everything else comes in, and the phase-out money that we receive is right here on line 10, and we know that that's dropping by approximately $213,000 every year, so that's what we're countering in our budget going forward, that loss in money. You know, the other reports, this is just our state aid, but but it just kind of shows if anybody's curious on, you know, what makes up any of those items that we have on our lead sheet. Did want to point out all other operating revenue. If we were to look at lines 6 and 7, that's interest on investments that we have coming in, and I have it totaled down here in my little analysis. But we made our $1 million, so we came in at $1,056,000. And that's just for money sitting in the bank. So that contributes to our surplus of $828,000. So that we're using investment income to counter that. That's one, reason why. So I was very happy, that came through. And I'm going to balance that against Suburban Health Consortium later in the meeting. But yeah, that was awesome when that came through at the end. For expenses, any of those sheets we can look at for personnel services, for salaries. We have that sheet here. I'll point out to the large line items. Row 1 is salaries for certified staff. From my estimate, we came in at 97.5. And for non-certified on row 11, object code 141, we came in at 93%. So always under budget. I'm always mindful to, see where we're at and where things go. And ultimately, the 10.3 against the 10.7 budget is a 96.2% actual spend. So, retirement and benefits, the largest one is going to be row 9, our medical insurance. We came in at 94%. We do have our HSA employer contribution on row 11. But, when all put together, we're still under budget altogether on, where we look at it. And again, it all flows through to the 5-year forecast, and then that's our, that's how we kind of measure how, the school district's going to operate going into the future. So, there isn't too many else here for the general fund. Now, if we were going to look at all of our funds, so T2C is my budget versus actual spreadsheet that I give our auditors, and this has all of our funds. So we looked at the general fund on row 17, and it kind of tells our story. So we start with beginning cash, which is at 17.3, and we had encumbrances of 43,000. So this is our beginning unencumbered amount, so it's just that minus that, and this is what we give the auditors. And then we do our amended certificate of estimated resources. So as we go through the year, I'm constantly changing revenues with the county, and I send all of these amendments to them as we go. I still haven't gotten back the most recent one from June 30th, so the county's still working on that, and we're in August. So those are revenue, and expenses will be over here in appropriations. So we can see every time that the board voted to adjust our appropriations, we did 6 in total plus our temporary, and we have the board meetings in which we did it and resolution number along the way. And then we have our total expenses in column B, and then we have our ending cash and any encumbrances that we have to pay still, and then our ending unencumbered cash that gets sent to the county. So where we started the year with all of our funds, so we started around 21 million. And we ended up the year at 21 million. So trying to keep everything as is. Now we do know that we have some large projects on the horizon ahead, the Hillside and the fire alarm system. So we are going to deplete some of our overall cash as we start to spend now on these capital projects that we have. And then coming after would be the roofing projects that we have. So that overall balance will start to dip, but we're just mindful of everything as we go. So we're in a strong standpoint now where we're at, but there are a lot of factors. The cash carryover, levy restrictions, federal grants. I mean, we got notice at that, we didn't know if we were getting all of our grants and how that was working. So, we leverage those against salaries that we have for employees of the district and other services that we spend. So it's just trying to keep everything in balance, but, we're constantly monitoring it and measuring it as we go. Anything else on the fiscal year? I could probably talk hours more on it, but I try to get some of the highlights. Cool. So if there are no questions, that's all I have for voted on items for tonight.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Muccio.
Yep.
This hearing, any other discussion?
I was just going to say, Mr. Muccio, I want to thank you and the rest of the administrative team for your efforts to allow us to make the best of a tough situation, so thank you for doing that.
Okay. No other questions or comments. We can move on to vote for the treasurer's consent agenda.
Ms. Prowse?
Aye.
Mr. Dobbins?
Aye.
Mrs. Etter?
Aye.
Mrs. Decker?
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. And we'll move on to treasurer's discussions, section 7.
Yep.
Mr. Muccio.
Just a couple items tonight. So 7A, so we did begin the gap conversion. So we enter into a contract every year with the Auditor of State's Office to perform that. So all that means is we are on a cash basis, and then they take us to GAAP, Generally Accepted Accounting Principles, and then they build our audit report, and then the auditors come in and audit that audit report. Think of it that way. So they started, and it's actually funny because the one of the auditors on our project, I was emailing him stuff, and the next week I continued to email him stuff, but the email wasn't working. So I even checked with Hartman over there. I'm like, is this email address still working? No, they got back to me. They're like, he's no longer at the office. So there's turnover everywhere, I guess. So that was just interesting. But no, we continue to work with them as we go. 7B is going to be our OSBA Capital Conference for 2025. So that's coming fast, I guess. The dates for that are November 16th through the 18th down in Columbus. And then the second attachment talks about, from OSBA, appointing a delegate. And then they ask that we do this no later than our August board meeting. So I guess we would put on that delegate then, if we end up going. Or would be at that point in time. So then that would be our second meeting in August for that. Here. Suburban Health Consortium. So I did attach the financials for them. Let's see, we have the ending balance for July 2025, which is, we're at 3.7 million, and we remain out of compliance with ORC 9.833, which that estimate says the consortium should have a ending cash balance of 11.6, almost 11.7 million. We're in month 10 out of 12 in their fiscal year, and there's a deficit of 931,000 ultimately for the year. So that means revenues are 82 million and expenses are 83 million. So that's our almost $1 million deficit that we have through 10 months out of their fiscal year. So we began with 4.6 million, almost 5 million, and with that deficit, we're at 3.7. And remember, the actuary is saying we should have 11.7. So that's where Suburban Health Consortium is, and there's going to be more discussion on that. I just attended a meeting today where the consortium's exploring switching prescription drug providers from Express Scripts potentially to another by issuing an RFP out to the public, and 3 firms interviewed. Express Scripts was one of the 3. So there could be movement, there could not be in the future on that for prescription drug. If we remember, maybe a year and a half ago, we switched from Medical Mutual to Anthem to also stave off high-cost claims that were coming through. So, and even if we look at the report here, this is from Todd Puster, who used to be the treasurer at Orange, retired, and he's still now the fiscal consultant for Suburban Health Consortium. He's doing it in a retired status for a short bit of time. And he says significantly, we had 2 weeks of unusually high medical premium payments in excess of $2 million. So just another factor contributing to that almost $1 million deficit that we saw. And these are the financials down here, kind of a similar way to how I present them. And if we were to look at investment earnings here, this row, it's saying that out of 10 months, they have a balance of $67,000. So the consortium, through 10 months out of their fiscal year, and they started with 4.7 million, almost 5 million, they only gained 67,000. So if you take that from 10 months to 12 months, let's add another 6,000. So that would bring us to, here's my note. That would bring us to 73,000 for the total of the year. And, they're at 5 million and 73,000. So if we multiply 5 million by 4 to get 20 million, 73,000 times 4 is just shy of 300,000. So if we were talking apples to apples, Suburban Health, which is looking at 67,000 for investment income, and if we were to kind of balance that out, from 5 million to 20 million and multiply, their investment by 4, they're at 300,000. We're at over $1 million, so not even in the same ballpark, for what Suburban Health Consortium is pulling as far as investment income. So, I've had some thoughts and some suggestions made over the years to them too, but it just goes to show, just the difference in two entities and how much can actually help out an investment income as opposed to another. And these are just real-time numbers that we have in front of us. And then item 7D is the new forecast timeline. So due to House Bill 96, there's a new deadline for, it's no longer the 5-year forecast, but now the 3-year forecast. I think they're just calling it the forecast. So, so the forecast submission is going to be, per law, August 31st and then February 28th. So it used to be November and May. That's no longer the case. It's August and February. And for this year only, the forecast is due by October 15th. So with that new timeline, I have a tentative one at the bottom. So we could do a couple things. One thing I threw out is we could do everything all together October, is that October 1st? Is that the correct board meeting? But it would be the first board meeting, yeah, I guess so, October 1st when I looked at it. So at our October 1st board meeting, we can review, because that's a work session, and we can review the forecast and approve it all together in one. We could do that. Or we could review the forecast maybe at our September 17th board meeting, but that's a regular board meeting that starts at 7 o'clock, so a little later. And then we would look to approve it October 1st, just to meet that deadline of October 15th, because our next Board of Education meeting isn't until October 15th, if I have that correct. So we have time, but just wanted to throw that out there for a tentative timeline. I think it worked pretty well, like approving the forecast and reviewing it all in one meeting. So we could do that, or we could do the split 2 and 2. So maybe next meeting I'll see which way everybody wants to go, and we can see, because we'll have plenty of time. But again, it's no longer 5 years, but 3. But I think we like the 5-year forecast.
Yeah, I was reading, it's a 3-year forecast, but must include the current year, so it's really a 4-year forecast.
That's why
If
they
you
call it
think
the
of
forecast.
that year. And I think, knowing Mr. Muccio, he'll submit the proper forecast to the state, but he'll probably still continue the practice of a 5-year forecast. For our internal operations, it's something that he's been very successful at, we as a district have been successful at. I think it helps us with that long-term vision as to, where we might see some need in the future or try to avoid a need in the future.
Right.
So, right?
Yep. Yeah. We're all comfortable with it. I think it works well. And nobody understood why going from 5 to 3 or 4. So, yeah. We'll do
And to
that.
have it due so soon, I mean, you've just closed out the previous year and you're forecasting within, Yeah.
There was a lot of things in HB 96 that didn't make
August
sense.
31st is just a few days away.
Yeah,
And then October 15th.
yeah, the November one kind of worked perfect because you were able to have the results of any elections that occurred by that time. You didn't have a lot of time to adjust, but it gave you an idea. Yeah, for August, what it really does is they're trying to get final numbers and a forecast. So if they ever have the ability to get us in front of a county budget commissioner, or any school district, that allows for them to have time, I think, to adjust tax rates, tax figures going into the new year. So I think that was the thought by having it done earlier by August 31st. So,
Yeah.
but no, it doesn't really give time, and I think honestly, it just impacts school districts in a negative way, because I think you get a better sense of, numbers and figures with that November forecast, just that time to take a look at it. So that's one of those things where, we feel that process, the 5-year forecast and the times for it were good. And it was a good tool for all school districts, so it was something that wasn't broke and didn't need any fixing, but we have a new schedule now. So, and that's all I have for tonight.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Muccio. We will move on to number 8, superintendent's business. We do these all as a consent agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. All right. Thank you. So on the consent agenda, we have items 8A through D, items 9A through C, items 10A and B, and items 11A through G for consideration.
So motion for the superintendent's consent agenda?
So moved.
Ms. Kraus?
Second.
Ms. Etter gets
Ms.
a second.
Etter, second. Okay. Any
Okay.
discussion?
Yep. All right, so under item 8, this is superintendent's general business. We have 2 handbooks. One is the preschool handbook, or pre-kindergarten handbook for 25-26 that aligns with the Ohio Department of Children and Youth's latest requirements for preschool compliance. Annually needs to be approved. Letter B, this is an updated version of the student activities handbook, athletic and activities handbook. We approved that recently, but Mr. Garish has been working with coaches to get feedback to kind of get us back in line with 2025 standards. Letter C is a requirement by Ohio Revised Code to have an initial approval of your bus routes for the new school year. So this is, you'll see with that attachment, just estimated times that our buses will be going down various streets for our elementary school, our middle school, high school, morning and afternoon runs, as well as our pre-K in the middle of the day. So any updates to this list, which there will be, based on ridership, they don't require board approval. It's only the initial bus route schedule. And then letter D, this is the annual adoption of our miscellaneous pay rate schedule for 2025-26. We do have 2 changes, and this is tied to our collective bargaining agreements for the substitute bus and van driver and substitute custodians, as well as the substitute cleaning and cafeteria staff. So as those values or steps change, rates in the negotiated agreement, it affects the miscellaneous pay schedule. You also see that ticket takers are on here. That number hasn't changed, but I make reference to that because when we get down to employment, we're hiring a bunch of ticket takers, and that's the schedule that we get their rate from. So, all right. So under number 9, superintendent's business and staff resignations. The first is the resignation of Kelly Mecklenburg from our cafeteria staff. She was a tremendous asset to our team this past year. She spent 1 year on the team and was extremely valuable. And I hate to see her go, but we definitely value the time that we had with her. The second one is also a cafeteria resignation, but so Melissa Nemeth held 2 positions here. She was a cafeteria worker and then a cleaner. Her hours as a cafeteria worker is increasing, and she no longer wants to do then the 2 hours of cleaning, so she has to resign that position so that everything is buttoned up tightly when the auditors come in and ask questions in the treasurer's office. So she's resigning just that 2-hour position. She'll have an increase in her hours, which the way we approved her originally was 4 hours per day unless more hours were approved by a supervisor. So it allowed us the flexibility to increase our hours in the future if we needed to without a board approval. Letter C is the resignation of Mrs. Krofcheck as our high school biology teacher. Definitely want to thank her for her 21 years of service. She was a steady force with our honors and advanced placement programming. She was a team leader or a department chair for our science department for a number of years when I was principal as well as beyond. And she told me she's been going to school here since she was 4 years old. So I know how tough this decision must have been for her, but she has a tremendous opportunity that will continue to allow her to grow professionally. And I think it allows her to be with her family more as well. So it's a win-win for her. Hate to lose her, but definitely want to wish her well. Number 10, this is Superintendent's Business and Employment. We have our supplemental contracts for chat, a couple items. So a team leader position, Mr. Brick will be the team leader of 6th grade. That was vacated when Mrs. Wilson retired and then Mrs. Andreski left for Strongsville. Mr. Brick's he's a tremendous young positive role model, and I think it's been great to watch him grow as a leader, not just of children, but a leader of his peers and a leader for the community. And then we have a modification for a football position. Mr. Dan DeRazio had a 100% position. He's cutting that down to a 50% position, making way for another individual, James McBride, to come in and provide some part-time coaching services. So, that's the kind of selflessness sometimes we've seen out of our coaches, that they're willing to take a fraction of a supplemental in order to allow another body to come in, and anytime we can have more qualified adults around our kids, our students benefit from that. So, and then the longest section here, 11, these are agreements, contracts, and memberships. The first, this is an annual agreement we have with, it's called Newsella. It's an electronic platform that provides informational text that's aligned to standards that allows our teachers to hit that half of the language arts standards starting in our middle school programming. Letter B, this is an agreement with Turnitin. It's called Turnitin.com to our students. But Turnitin is it's a web-based plagiarism detection system that we've been using since 2016. Students will write an essay. They have to submit it electronically into this system, and the net system vets it against a very large national database to determine how much of that document has been written authentically and how much of it has maybe been ripped off from the internet or some other source. Because every time you submit the paper, it now becomes part of the database. So it's something that is, it's helped our language arts department at the high school as it's become more and more difficult to determine authentic writing. So this is used a lot at the college level or similar programs. Next is the agreement with hospital purchasing services for our cafeteria. Through this cooperative agreement, we are able to purchase certain items like cafeteria trays, utensils, and things like that through the cooperative purchasing agreement. Letter D, this is our annual subscription to Ohio is America, which is our 4th grade social studies curriculum for a cost of $1,007.50. That's through the Ohio History Connection. So we know it's, again, standards aligned, and we've been using this for a number of years. I think back even when I was principal here, we were using this. Letter E, this is an agreement with Timothy O'Keefe. He does work with tuition services for students who are court-placed in our district, and meaning that we have money that should be funneling with the child into our school system. That doesn't always happen or happen easily, and Tim knows how to file the SF-14 and SF-14H forms properly. That brings actually a substantial amount of money to our district. Do you recall how much that was last time?
Yeah, It's,
He's got it.
it's, so we received, we received, in the H, is for special education, so SF 14, we got 240,000, SF 14H, we got 33,000.
So about $260,000 comes our way. His services cost approximately $32,000 per year. So we definitely get that money back almost tenfold. Next, we have an agreement with Paladin Protective Systems. Paladin, they were the kind of like the partner company with Einheit. Einheit has done a tremendous job with our installation of our fire system and security system. Paladin is going to do the monitoring of that system. They currently are doing the monitoring of the high school, but we need to get the rest of the district onto their system. Mr. Hartman, you want to talk about this just briefly? Because you'll see there's 4 different contracts here, 4 different agreements, and one's a master agreement that kind of breaks down how much everything costs per building or per service, and then there's the individual agreement for the buildings, so the elementary, the maintenance garage, and then the bus garage.
So this will be converting all of our analog security lines to cellular and online. That'll be for the elementary school, bus garage, and maintenance garage. This will also be a replacement for our failed security panel at the bus garage. Our yearly service right now for AT&T, who manages our analog lines, is $760. That's about $9,000 a year in annual cost just on our analog lines that go to our security system. Through this system, it'll be substantially cheaper. It'll only be about $2,280 a year, so we're going to save quite a lot of money on converting these lines. The main work of the project will just be in each of the rooms. They're going to install a box, and that will connect to our security panel. We will be providing internet drops as our secondary line, so we will still have a primary line monitored by Paladin and a secondary line that we provide.
Securitas has been monitoring our system in the
Yes, we'll
past,
be-
right? And we did a motion at the last meeting to get out of that contract and the costs to be associated with it of just over $400, I think.
Currently, Paladin covers our elevator and our high school, so this is just putting all of the security under one umbrella.
Yep. And a local company as well. Finally, we have the approval of student wellness services proposal with the ESC of Northeast Ohio for crisis prevention intervention training. We refer to that as CPI. It's a de-escalation training program. Mr. Burek has actually been a certified trainer in the past. Are you letting that expire now?
It was up this year, so getting